Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some really groundbreaking research that's trying to build an AI tutor that knows exactly when you're ready to learn. This could honestly change education as we know it. So let's just start with the big what if question that's at the heart of this whole study. Imagine a learning system that doesn't just grade you on right or wrong answers, but instead, it can actually sense your internal state of mind, your focus, your engagement, your curiosity, and it adapts to you in real time. To even get there, we first need to agree on what curiosity actually is. And, scientists don't see it as just some vague feeling. They define it as a very specific drive. It's the motivation we get when we feel a gap between what we know and what we want to know. It's basically that little itch in your brain that you just have to scratch. Okay, let's dive right into this. We've all felt it, right? When you're truly curious about something, learning feels, it feels effortless. The information just sticks. The problem is, that amazing state of mind, it's fleeting, it's unpredictable. We can't just flip a switch and turn on our curiosity when it's time to study. Or maybe we can. This is where the research proposes something pretty radical, a co-learning loop between a person and an AI. The whole idea is to create a system where the AI is constantly monitoring your biological signals to figure out how engaged you are, and then it adjusts what it's teaching you to keep you right in that perfect learning sweet spot. So how in the world would this actually work? Well, you can think of the AI as a kind of thermostat, but instead of regulating the temperature in a room, it's regulating your curiosity. It's this continuous three-step dance. First, the AI gives you a little challenge, like a trivia question, just to create that information gap. Second, while you're thinking about it, a bunch of sensors are measuring your body's response. And third, based on that data, the AI instantly adapts the very next challenge, making it a little harder if you're getting bored, or maybe a little easier if you're getting overwhelmed. But okay, this is the really clever part. How does the system actually measure something as subjective as curiosity? I mean, how can you put a number on that? The solution is to translate your biology into a single real-time score. You're essentially building a biological dashboard. The researchers came up with this composite metric they call the Fifth Sign Index, or FSI for short. Now, it's really important to know this isn't a direct curiosity detector. It's what we call a proxy, a stand-in. It measures the physical states like arousal and engagement that we know are super tightly linked with a curious mind. So this FSI score, it's calculated by blending three key signals. First, it looks at your heart rate variability, which is a fantastic indicator of calm, focused attention. Then, it tracks the teeny tiny changes in the size of your pupils, which tells us a lot about your mental effort. And finally, it measures specific brain waves that are associated with the exact moment a new memory is being locked in. And the way they capture all this data isn't with some big, bulky, intimidating lab setup. Nope, it's all done with this flexible, skin-safe bioelectronic patch. It just sits comfortably on your skin, measuring all these signals without ever getting in the way of the learning itself. All right, so let's get to the experiment and see how this all comes together. A mind-reading AI tutor sounds amazing in theory, right? But does it actually help people learn and remember things more effectively? That's the real question. To find out, the researchers designed a really smart experiment with 72 people. Each person actually got to try learning under all three of the different conditions. This lets them do a super powerful direct comparison of which method worked best for each individual. Okay, so there were three conditions in this showdown. First up was the SMART baseline, a pretty standard system that just gets harder or easier based on whether you get the answers right. The second was the mind-reading tutor, which adapted based on your answers plus that real-time FSI score from your body. And the third was an exploratory group, just to see if a little bit of mild nerve stimulation could give an extra boost. So what's the bottom line here? The thing that really matters isn't how well you do in the moment. It's what you can still remember a day later. That was the real test. How much could people recall 24 hours after the learning session? So what were they hoping for? Well, the researchers hypothesized that the FSI adaptive tutor, the one reading your biological signals, would boost that 24-hour recall by a pretty solid 6 to 8 percentage points compared to the regular system. Now, I know what you might be thinking. 6 to 8%? That doesn't sound like a lot, but in the world of learning science, an improvement of that size is a really big deal, seriously. Over the course of learning a whole complex subject, a 6 to 8% boost in what you remember could absolutely be the difference between passing and failing, or between truly mastering something and just kind of getting by. So let's zoom out a bit. What are the bigger implications here? I mean, if this approach really works, it could signal a massive shift in how we think about learning and technology altogether. All right, let's just recap the most important things to take away. First, it seems we have a real way to measure a proxy for the biological state of curiosity. Second, an AI can actually use that data to create a truly personalized learning loop. And that means learning could get way more efficient. And finally, and this is huge for science, the researchers are making everything, from the hardware designs to the software code, completely open source for anyone to use and build on. Ultimately, this whole research project just reframes the entire goal of education. For centuries, we've focused on the content, the what of learning. This new approach suggests the future is about optimizing the learner, the how and the when of learning, right down to our own biology. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating, almost sci-fi question to think about. We're right on the verge of creating tools that don't just give us information, but that actually understand our internal mental states. And as that technology gets better, it forces us to ask, what does it even mean to learn when your tutor can literally read your mind?